Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Night's Light Astrology. So, today we're going to be covering the new moon in Taurus. And for anyone who doesn't know, what my specialty is I'm a mundane astrologer. And so, I'm not really going to be getting into how this moon affects you as an individual, although it will touch on that. And I may get into that. We'll kind of just see what the flow is like. What I'll really be getting into is what mundane astrology is really about, which is current events, the nation states, and really the ways that you can predict what's coming in through looking at the charts of these nation states, of current events, of all stuff like that. You know, I've with some of my previous work, I went over the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting and that chart. These are all things you can really look at. And my first stream that I did was actually on the new moon in Aries. And so that was where we had the first really inkling come in of how we're going to see what this new moon affects, which is not necessarily the same thing, but an adjacent thing. So, of course, we're going to pull up some charts here, but just in terms of doing a little bit of, I guess you could call it channeling in terms of what I think is going to happen. When you're looking at that Taurus energy, of course, the big one word that people have been throwing around is the foundations of things. And the way in which it's going to hit the chart and the foundations has a lot to do with what we're going to see in the new moon in Scorpio 6 months from now. And this is something you can really track with the moon transits, is every 6 months kind of going into this full circle, I guess you could call it, of the themes that present themselves upon the new moon and then going into the opposition new moon. Some people would say that it's even the full moon. Like it really just depends on which system that you're using. But either way, those are both going to be around the same time anyway. And really looking at that time later in the year, we're going to have more than just that full moon going on. That's also in Taurus, which deals with releasing things. This will be releasing things around the Taurus energy, which is not just the foundations, but it is money and its resources. So the thing with this new moon is I feel it's heralding the Chiron in Taurus that's going to be coming in once it leaves Aries here. And that's going to be, I forget off the top of my head, it's going to be quite soon here. It's right now it's at 28 degrees of Aries. So it's moving out pretty quickly, that Chiron in Taurus here. And with the Chiron in Taurus, that energy is going to deal with how we deal with not having the resources that we need available to us, all the resources. How are we going to pivot? What are we going to do when we don't have those things available to us? And really, this is why I'm saying the new moon heralds that in. There's going to be that theme that comes in. It may not hit us on the individual level yet, though, and you'll see why as I get into the charts that I have for today. But really, with the new moon in Taurus, what I'm viewing it as is where we get the first inklings of how the economic system is going to change. And this is why I said it's adjacent to the new moon in Aries, because the way that I had even titled my stream for the new moon in Aries was financial structures ignited, around like oil, something like that. It's on my channel. And this is the first step that we saw on the world stage with the financial system coming in, and this has to deal with Neptune in Aries as well. All of these things are going to be related. So there was that Neptune Aries play with the new moon in Aries when I did that stream, and it was the first step, whether President Trump is aware of it or not, whether he's an unwitting useful idiot in this, or whether he has some deeper plan going on behind the scenes on this. But the first step was to get the Strait of Hormuz closed down. And at every opportunity where it looks like he can get it open back up, you can see that he doesn't do it, that he makes these really stupid calls on it. And this seems intentional to me. This has to do with the new financial system that's coming in. In recent streams, I've been covering how we're pivoting towards owning the entire Western Hemisphere as America and making it into essentially a type of fortress. And all of this has to do with the new financial system coming in. But yes, with the new moon in Taurus, we're going to see, and we've already seen since we're in the dark moon, balsamic moon phase right now, that they just named a new chair of the Fed. And so this is going to have a lot to do with this, okay? And yeah, like I think we could probably start to get into charts, but what I will say is later in the year, excuse me, this is going to be October 3rd. Then we have that Venus go retrograde in Scorpio. It's going to spill over into Libra, but during that time, yeah, we have Venus go retrograde. And this has been my bigger prediction I've had for maybe like 5 to 6 months. Oh no, it's been longer, probably about 7-8 months now, is that when we get that Venus retrograde in Scorpio, that's where we really start to see the finishing touches on the new financial system coming in, on this new wave of finance and everything like that, with the aspects it's going to be making throughout the year, with the oppositions it'll be in to the things in Taurus at that time, October 3rd, 2026. This is where we're really going to see a lot of this stuff peak. So this begins a 6-month cycle of what we're going to see in the financial system changing, what we're going to see in resources changing, these shortages of oil that are going to cause shortage of products, shortage of the material goods, the resources that we have available to us, much less of a selection. You know, a lot of people don't think of how much stuff we use oil for and what that is going to cause shortage of on the shelves, oil, petroleum, and all these byproducts that come from it. So this is really heralding that in, getting us ready for the Chiron in Taurus that's going to come, which is the wound around those things. And another thing that I say with Chiron in Taurus is this is where, as we've seen this correction of the male energy coming in, and men becoming much more masculine again, not falling into this toxic masculinity type of thing, of being scared to show their masculinity. Now we're going to see the, I wouldn't call it the inverse, but we're going to see, I guess we'll use that word adjacent again, because it is literally adjacent in the zodiac sign. We're going to see that adjacent, where women start to find their new role in society, and it's going to have a lot to do with what we see go down during this time of the Taurus energy really undergoing a transformation. And this doesn't even start to get into when we have Saturn move into Aries. Now this isn't for about like 2.5 years or so, but you know, and we'll kind of stay on topic here. But yes, so later in October, I actually don't have that chart pulled up, but I'll kind of give you a couple placements. October 3rd, and this is really where I'm getting my bigger date. Not quite at October 3rd, it can be within about a month of that, because we've got to let the planets all kind of do their thing. But at that time, we have Venus retrograde. I have it on my phone here. That's where I have it pulled up. So just not on my computer, the ones that I'm going to go over. But we have Venus retrograde, Uranus retrograde. Mercury will go retrograde, I think about like within a week after this Venus retrograde begins. We've got Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Chiron retrograde, Pluto retrograde still, because it is retrograde right now. So we're going to have all of these things all in some weird aspect are dealing with the financial system. Saturn is dealing with the structures of it, of institutions, things like that. Neptune deals with the water aspect of money, because we call it currency. And I went over this in my last stream, but currency, liquidity, being underwater in terms of being debt or being underwater on a loan, these kind of things, all of these, you put your money in a bank. This would be the banks of like a river, or a body of water. So there's all these water themes, and the moon has something to do with this too. The moon is just the faster moving object, the emotional object, and that's why you see markets bend and sway. So typically, on a new moon, what you have are markets doing better. I foresee on Monday here, I'm doing this Friday night. Okay, this will upload Monday morning. But so we're going to get through the weekend here, and on Monday, I actually think we're primarily going to see bad stuff in the market. Anything good we would see would be part of the facsimile market, would be part of the artificial market that we're looking at. So just be kind of aware of that. I think for a lot of us, we kind of know what's what and what's being artificially pumped up in the market versus what's not. And then we even just saw at market close this evening on Friday night, I mean, a lot of people were freaking out about it because it was a $1 trillion that was cleared. But really, that $1 trillion was cleared, and it's going to go back into the market for the most part on Monday. So this is why you will see some things do well in the market, but ultimately it's going to be they'll wait for the panic. So there's some news they know about that's coming. In terms of the current events, we just had the meeting between President Trump and Xi Jinping. And really what that was about is getting ready. And that this was, of course, during, I think we were already in the balsamic moon phase. So you can start to consider that energy coming in of the new moon in Taurus when you're looking at events happening around the balsamic moon, the dark moon. And but the types of people that they brought there, these were all people, if you were going to set up a new financial system, that you would want to have there, and among other things that are going to be adjacent that will be changing with these things. So really, really cool chart. And then I didn't even get into when we're talking about those retrogrades that are going to come, when we get all these oppositions, when we get that new moon in Scorpio, we're also looking at Uranus, which will be retrograde. And Uranus and its quality of money it deals with, it rules over cryptocurrency. It rules over what's like there's a certain type of technological systems that the money runs through, which is very Uranian. So we've got that's going to be in Gemini. Gemini, the ruler of that is Mercury. And so that Gemini mercurial energy that deals with the commerce part of it, this deals with the other market parts of the economy, of the money system and all that. And like I said, Mercury is going to go retrograde, and these are going to be crossing one another as well during this time. Mercury and Venus, that is, being retrograde, are going to cross one another. We're both going to go retrograde in Scorpio, both end up going back into Libra. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to really take a look at. That we won't be looking at the October stuff because, first of all, that's a separate stream I can make, but also this is pretty far off. This is me just kind of putting it on the record again. And then I think that was, and then when you're looking at Pluto too, Pluto, ruling planet of Scorpio, or the 8th house, this deals with investments, this deals with other people's money and resources and all that. So even that, all of these retrogrades later in the year are going to play into what we're seeing kick off now. And I think the first thing that we saw with it is the replacement of the Fed chair. Not so much replacement, Jerome Powell, he was already done, he was stepping down, but the new person that we have coming in also, a lot of Arian energy. I believe he is an Aries sun too, but he's got this Aries energy going for him. So very interesting. And then so it really ties into this background Aries energy with Neptune and Saturn that's in play, and then really the conjunction that reset the world axis. So when you're looking at that conjunction back February 21st, that reset the world axis, part of this reset is going to deal with the monetary system. And so that Aries energy in the backdrop is even more potent when we're looking at these things. But we'll get into some charts here. We got a couple of them. Nothing too crazy. I went over the general stuff here, but we'll look at a couple of these particular placements here. All right, so you can see my mouse. Okay, I gotta get I'm gonna get an add-on here so I can kind of circle these things here. But this is just the new moon in Taurus. I've got this in Washington, D.C. And it's funny because the closest I could really get to these being exact, well, I shouldn't say the closest, but I mean, I got pretty close to the full moon, or the new moon, excuse me, being exact. With doing 3:33 p.m. out of Washington, D.C. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's sometime something has to happen, especially considering this is on a weekend. So we typically don't see a whole lot of news on the weekend. But remember, this background moon energy, this is actually it's going to last for 2 weeks until we get the next moon cycle. So it's in the backdrop for the next 2 weeks, and where we can see these things start to unfold. Now, one of the things that I find interesting with this is some people call this a mini trine, some people call it a wedge, but it's between remember we had we were in eclipse season, and then we had the conjunctions that came in, or they were fairly close to one another, but but that was at 28 degrees Aquarius. And so Aquarius, now that Pluto's moved in there too, it is bringing that transformative aspect. I mean, Pluto was already in there, obviously, but, it's starting to move in even further. And then it's starting to make a lot of these aspects, especially to the to Neptune is like really the big one here when you're looking Neptune. And then I think it's even giving an aspect to the vertex. That's a little less important for the mundane astrology, but worth noting. But yes, we have this wedge here, and this is between, yeah, like I said, the solar eclipse, Venus, and then Mars too. And so I do anticipate, this is going to have to, with that Mars thing there, it's going to have something to do with a move that's like made over the next 2 weeks. Perhaps it's and don't forget, this is Chiron too, so that wedge hits the Mars and the Chiron. And so, like, what is like a wound around that Martian energy, around that Aryan energy that we have? Well, really backing out of Iran. So Iran plays into this. Iran plays into any of the money stuff, though, because of how they position themselves amongst the world banks, that kind of thing. So there will be something, I think that's a little less important, but there will be something kind of going on with that as well. I more want to focus on, because I've looked at the chart of the United States. I do have Iran and Israel's chart up too. Didn't find anything majorly crazy. I did find a couple things. We'll kind of just take a look here. See if I even remember when I looked at them. But that was like the big thing, yeah. And then like I was saying, there's this Pluto sextile that's going up here to Neptune, and yeah, I definitely think with the Pluto Neptune thing there we go with the currency of Neptune, there. And if you really want to know more about the currency part of Neptune and have me break it down in a much deeper way, this is in my Neptune and Aries latest live stream that I did, where I go into the Civil War, the huge financial things that have happened then and now with the Civil War. And when I say then, I mean the last time Neptune was in Aries. And then we're going to have these things repeat themselves. There's going to be a change in the financials. And then you also get that with Uranus Gemini stuff too. And then back during the Civil War, Uranus was also in Gemini. So these are all things that we really need to be aware of. At least I'm pretty sure it was in Gemini. I'm making sure, hopefully I'm not getting it confused with the Revolutionary War. But the important thing right now is that Neptune, Aries, right there. And then that square to Pluto and Aquarius there. Aquarius being the zodiac, when we were talking about Uranus and ruling cryptocurrency. So that ties you into that Aquarian energy of the cryptocurrency, of a rebirth, of a digital ID type of technological thing that we're moving into. And even in the UK, they just started doing that too. The digital ID, King Charles just announced that. He's like, oh, no, we're all doing digital ID. So you see them kind of going first, taking the lead on that. Ultimately, that's not going to end well. But nothing really ever ends well in Uranus and Gemini for Europe ever. So they become the sacrifice. We know that much, at least. If you don't believe me, look back at World War II, the last time Uranus was in Gemini. But that's just the chart in general. Now I have a synastry chart here of the United States chart. Some people call it the Sibley chart. I think that's kind of gay, if we're being honest, and that's coming from a gay man. So why we're going to call it the chart of the U.S. And really the things that I'm looking at here, of course, there is the stuff that's going on with the moon. So what we've got here is with the new moon, we've actually got this going this is the inner wheel, excuse me. And the inner wheel is the new moon, right? Yeah, that's the new moon. Okay. So, but yeah, with the new moon here, we've got these squares that are coming down to that solar eclipse that I mentioned. And the solar eclipse that we just recently had in Aquarius is also very close, within a couple degrees. It is within orb of the solar eclipse that we had with the founding of the United States. So this is really interesting to note. And then on top of that, you're getting these squares from Uranus that are coming down. Now, this is something I'll zoom in on a little bit so I can just see it a little bit better. We've got these placements over here. So Mercury and, Uranus here. Those are coming conjunct. We just had the Mercury Cazimi. So we've got a lot of this energy that deals with the new financial system, what rulerships it will be under. less so about the Venus, although that's always going to be there. But I'm trying to show you the ways in which these planets work for setting up a new financial system, because this is the way that they have worked in the past for setting up a new financial system when you go back and look at those charts. And of course, we're in the Uranus return right now of the US. It's not exact yet, but we do have that. But anyway, these squares that are coming down here and dealing with the moon of the U.S. chart. When you're looking at the moon in mundane astrology, it really has to do with foreign affairs is one thing that you get, the well-being of the people in the state, all that. And then with this Taurus moon backdrop in there, the square that's going on, it really speaks to how far we've gotten from where the well-being was supposed to lie with the people in the founding of the country, and like where it's at now. This speaks to us becoming a consumerist society, those kind of things, and a lot of that. We're in this window where that can change, because people are going to have less resources, less finances, less things available to them. We'll see kind of that advance as it goes over the summer, over this next 6-month period, as we see these new things roll in. Alien stuff is going to definitely be a part of that, whatever they're trying to pull on us. And an interesting thing to note about the alien stuff is that they posted this on the Department of War website. They wanted you to physically go there, and it shows that they're trying to lay down this alien threat operation on us, where it's all about the war. It's all about trying to print more money. And this is why Trump met with China, it's just about keeping this system alive. Now, this could be a part of it. That's something I don't necessarily want to get into now, because I could just go on, and I'm really just trying to cover how this new moon in Taurus is affecting, for the next 2 weeks, things on a societal level. So yeah, we kind of went over those main squares that are coming down here. And then we've also got some squares over here too. So we've got this square between transiting Jupiter, our current placement of Jupiter, and then the natal Chiron in Aries of the U.S. chart. So this is also another interesting thing here, where we're going to have, well, and also, by the way, let me go back. I will come back to the square, okay, that Jupiter to Chiron, okay, but let me actually, while I'm thinking of it, come back here, because I forgot to mention that when you're looking at this from Washington, D.C., you have over here, also Algol is right here too. These are happening right conjunct Algol. So like, don't even like freaking get me started. So you got that Algol deals with like losing one's head. It deals with alcohol. It deals with like these kind of things, but it's like kind of going crazy, losing your head, these kind of things. You can look up the story of Algol, the mythology of it. So juxtapose that with this here, where you got that Chiron Aries there. This is also a placement that Elon Musk has, Chiron Aries. And then people talk about like, oh, does he have a brain chip or not? Because Aries deals with the head. So that's also just an interesting little synchronicity, I guess you could call it. But another thing that I meant to look up over here is because this is when it's going to be exact, we can use the house system for it. And so this is the house system for the transit itself and what it's going to bring in. Now over here, we have both of the separate house systems, and I'm going to get into that and add that accent in there. I realized I did forget to with those first squares we went over. But here, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, this is not it. Here, so we have this in the 8th house. Well, what does the 8th house rule? All that stuff of Scorpio that we were talking about. So this is other people's resources, investments, that kind of thing. So what are we really going to see here? People will talk about new beginnings with the new moon itself. So new moon in Taurus dealing with resources in the 8th house, which rules the opposite sign rules. So there is this play that we're seeing between that 8th house Scorpio energy when it's going to come full circle in 6 months. That's what we're really going to see. So this is where it kicks off, and like we may see some things with that, with the investments, with the financial stuff like that. I really look at 8th house stuff as being even like it's the money that you squirrel away, because then that becomes someone else's money. So it's other people's money, and that returns back to you. I mean, and this can hit people on an individual level in good ways, though. That's the thing. and it all depends on your chart and everything. But I've noticed for myself, my eighth house is Aries. I've noticed like eighth house transits, Scorpio transits. That's actually where I get the most of my money. It's not typically during the Taurus stuff. If anything, I actually have the hardest issues with money, or the most issues with money during the second house and Taurus. Not always though. I do have a second house Jupiter, and that serves me very well for always having the resources that I need at my disposal when I need them. But this isn't about me. But yeah, so I wanted to just kind of talk about that eighth house energy going on there. And then, it's hopeful though with the fifth house energy, these things that are coming down. I mean, it's meant to come down, and it's going to be very hopeful and good for us, And then even with the ninth house energy and stuff there too, where you're not, both of these are going into some pretty decent aspects. You've just got that major square, but that deals with the eclipse when you're dealing with that square. So and it is an exact square too, very exact. But let's get back over here to this. So when you're looking at those initial squares here, then we're dealing the same thing with that fifth house energy, with where this stuff is supposed to be going. It's the third house, mercurial, commerce, that kind of stuff. So all of these like same energies are coming together. The only curveball or side one that I've thrown in here is that fifth house energy, which is ruled by Leo. But really when you're looking at, and then this would be the fifth house of so it's like, the third house of the United States, but then the fifth house, this is just that same thing I was talking about, that fifth house energy. So you're combining those two energies here, dealing with like, how is the commerce going to really, like in terms of mundane astrology, that's one of the big things I think of. Where is communication going to have an issue? Like, is there going to be an issue with communication that's dealing with money and stuff like that in terms of Iran and all that? But anyway. And then so it gets back to that, but then up here too, you've got the the descendant here over here, and then so that's dealing with the like seventh house right here. So what this is talking about the United States chart, and then the squares that we're getting, and that square is like up here though, but then we're in the Uranus return, and that's where the transiting Uranus in the same sign is hitting. Okay, so and then this is that ninth house energy, like I said, that we talked about. But that's just kind of covering a lot of the stuff I just switched over here to show you guys, but just giving it a little bit more clarity there. And then moving on to that square over here. So this is in the 10th house, which is the public image and all of that. And that's where it is in terms of this current new moon. So take it with a little bit less of a grain of salt, but it is in the 8th house, and there goes that 8th house energy again of the United States. And then you got the sun, the part of fortune, the Mercury there. So there goes that mercurial energy. There goes the scorpionic energy, all of that, where Jupiter is sitting at currently, transiting Jupiter. And then that's in square over here to Chiron. And then that Chiron is existing over here in the 4th house, which rules the home. So like where is the wound at home? That's going to have to do with violence. We're going to want to look out for probably minor attacks. I know they just found a bomb that was in a dam in some Midwest state. I'm forgetting exactly which Midwest state it was. Excuse me for that. But you can look it up. It'll come up pretty quick. There, it was in a dam. It might have been West Virginia. Don't quote me. But yeah, they found an IED, and they were able to defuse it and dispose of it, destroy it. But over the next 2 weeks, we could hear more things like that. This may lead into something that's going to cause, a wound. But I view that stuff as happening later in the year, particularly during the 4th of July, 250th anniversary of America, Mars-Uranus conjunction. I view that as being more of a window for a huge terror event. It also could be a window for disclosure, though, too. And one thing I will say with disclosure is that you notice we've got that moon in Aquarius in the natal chart of the U.S. Well, funny enough, we had the moon in Aquarius conjunct Pluto when we had the release, and that release of the UFO stuff, which of course was a nothing burger, but that was on May 8th, which was V-Day, from World War II. or it might have even been World War One. I know it's V-Day, having to do with one of the wars here, and so that's really interesting. Also, the South Node is in there too, and transiting Pluto is on top of the South Node for the U.S. chart. So it's like, I mean, I wouldn't say on top, but it is conjoined with it, with the current. Yeah, so that's, and then what's funny is the North Node. So we'll be in a nodal flip. The North Node is about to move in. The transiting North Node is about to move in, and then it's going to cross that Pluto, and there's going to be all this play on the South Node. So that's where we really see an accumulation of a lot of this stuff. And I mean, it's gonna be interesting, especially towards the end of this year, going in the middle of next year. That's where we definitely see a lot of stuff around that. But we'll stay on track here. We got that Jupiter square. I didn't even talk about what, like, the Jupiter, or I guess I did, yeah. Because, like, this is where Jupiter, I always say, is the planet of too much. But it deals with, like, the adventure of something too. There's always, like, an adventure theme around it. That's why it can be too much, or like the journey of something. It's very, you get that with, like, Sagittarians, very adventurous people, that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we've got that in Cancer right now, and then Cancer is the sun sign of the United States, and it just deals with the home. So this is the homeland, like too much decadence in the homeland, like we've been looking at things in the homeland too much, that kind of thing, or there's just some kind of theme around too much in the homeland, which leads to this damage. This can be too much overextension too, because Jupiter is that planet of going out, going out, exploring the journey, that's that type of thing. But there's going to be this relation between, like, what is there too much of here at home that is causing the damage at home, causing the damage to ourselves, to the self of the nation, the identity of the nation, that kind of thing. The pride, you could even say, like, pride or ego. You can talk about that being more of a Leo thing, but there is some level of that goes on in Aries. It's more of like an infantilized version of it. It's not really quite the same level as Leo, but yeah, we got that going on. And then this square down here to the natal Pluto, which is down here in Capricorn, 8 degree Capricorn, that natal Pluto in America's chart, which is in the second house of resources. Second house of resources. On top of that South Node I was talking about, that's in the second house of resources there. So we're going to have that. That's going to be hitting. And then you have this interesting juxtaposition, because the natal Chiron is being aspected by a transiting planet, and then the transiting Chiron and Mars here in the 8th house of the transit, that is coming down here to Pluto, to the natal Pluto in the second house. So when you've got that going on there is something that's Mars related, that's Aryan related, that's going to cause some type of damage, and it's going to do something to the markets, it's going to do something to resources, and it's going to set the tone for when Chiron here, this is the transit chart here of the new moon, for where Chiron moves in to Taurus. So this, right, when you get this conjunction here, and the conjunction, look at this with the chart I pulled, the conjunction is exact, down to the minutes. 28 degrees, 24 minutes, 28 degrees, 24 minutes. Look at that. So this is something you guys can really expect to see in the next 2 weeks. Now, just as a quick thing, we're not going to spend too much time on it, but yeah, looking at Iran's chart, I see things in Aries going on. I see things in the late degrees of Taurus. Like, really, this is where it kind of gets into is the commerce part. So there is something with oil. Yeah, I mean, and that's not even, I'm over here thinking that's like an Aries. So really, that's a minor aspect, because that's like, well, that'd be like a semi-square. It's a minor tense aspect, because that's going to come right over into square of the what's it called? Mercury there. And then I might have accidentally said that Mercury here was conjunct Uranus, but it's still going to be a couple days till we see that, but it will move in. Where is that? Mercury right here. That is gonna, like, or wait, this is Iran, I'm sorry. Mercury right here, that is gonna move in and conjoin while we're still in the dark moon phase, while we're still, it's like a day or two after or something, like, which I don't know if, like, I think it's on both sides you consider that, but yeah, but like right within the full moon there, that's when we're moving that in there. So these are just really cool aspects to look at. But with Iran, I mean, you got the moon right there in Gemini, 7 degrees Gemini. So, I mean, in terms of that, I'm not really seeing solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, I'm not really seeing too much that stands out to me here. 8 degree Saturn. Yeah, I mean, nothing that's like, I mean, I'm sure I could find a couple things here. There's just nothing that's really popping out at me, to be quite frank. I mean, there could be this like Uranus opposition. I don't even know if that's really an opposition. Yeah. There's nothing, I mean, everything's essentially out of orb at 20 degrees. But yeah, and then as far as like Israel goes, let's just take a look here. A lot of, we got that Taurus moon right, or I'm sorry, Taurus sun right there. So there's like something there. This could be maybe resources from, like, there's something with resources with them that's going on. Because if you look at like the degrees on that, it is with an orb. It's a new moon with an orb. They also have that solar eclipse, the prenatal solar eclipse that happened in Taurus. Their north node is in there. Something, so it'll hit Israel in some type of way. Or we may see the first steps of it, and then over the summer, when Jupiter moves in here and starts to move across a couple of these planets here, then that may be when we really see, I think it will move across 2 planets before we get that retrograde. But that's where we're really, it might hit all 3. It might hit all 3. But that's when we really will see how this is going to affect Israel, is more during the summer. Yeah, and then, lunar eclipse stuff. Yeah. I'd say that's kind of it. Like, but really, I think this hits the United States in a much bigger way. And so that's really, I think, what I got for you guys. Just be on the lookout for all that stuff. Be on the lookout, because this really is where we're starting this process of the new financial system coming in over the next 6 months. Now, it may take a little longer than that, but essentially the trigger, what my prediction is by the time we're 6 months from now, roughly 6 to 7 months, because we want to let these retrogrades kind of lock all this stuff in, but roughly around that time, that's where we see the first steps to where people can onboard into whatever this new financial system is that they're building. It seems like China's going to be a part of it with this latest meeting that they had. And this all, everything seems to be on track with the predictions that I've been giving for quite some time now. I mean, definitely for at least 6 months or so, about what's going to be coming in. All these new things coming in. So, nothing to be scared about. This is the thing I always say. Like, I always view the worse things get, the better it ultimately is. Like, what did we come here for? We came here to change the world. And so how are we going to change the world if we have all the chips stacked against us? You know what I mean? How are we going to change the world? Well, that's because an opening gets created by all these things that are coming in, all this chaos, whether it's the alien stuff, the new financial system, the corruption that comes out. And, it's not like they're going to willingly let the corruption come out, but we get a window, through God, we get a window on these things. And so these are the things to be excited about. It's for all of us who have sat around praying, how could we ever be scared about this? Didn't we pray for change? Well, this is the way the change has to come, in a very scorpionic way. And so, we just have to be excited for this. We have to know that we'll be in the right place at the right time. And we all got this, Like I said, this is why we came here. We came here to change things. We came here to be a light for the people around us who are going to be having big issues because they've signed on for so long to a system that they thought would never go away. And it is starting to go away now. We've had the major conjunction this year. We've moved into all these new planets, first time in like around 4,000 years. We've had all of these planets in these signs, and then even on top of that, moving in the same year. I mean, we are in a once in a civilizational, and I've said this before, not once in a lifetime, not once in a generation or anything like that. Once in a civilizational change. The last time we had these major placements of the outer planets, that was the end of the Bronze Age. This is what we call the Bronze Age collapse. Okay? And we think we're not going to have a civilizational collapse where we can build something better. But hey, maybe I like it because I'm a Pluto Scorpio. We're kind of meant to tear shit down. But you guys have a good one. Enjoy your new moon. Enjoy your weekend too. Enjoy the energy. It will be the weekend, so at least you won't be bothered. At least I don't think so, by any news that's too crazy. You can at least enjoy your weekend and kind of watch what starts to roll in over the next week and what starts to happen in the markets and stuff like that. But take it easy. Nightlight Astrology. If you want to ever book a personal reading, my website, I'll put it in the description, but it's also just on my channel page as well. And yeah, I hope everyone has a good one. God bless you all.